then every step forward will always be a step closer to home.
So step on up to the place. Need to face what can spread on into the light of air. Step on up to the place. 'Cause this ain't a game. It's time to make history. Yeah.
With the relaunch of PlayStation Plus to happen in the US June 13th, it's hard to say what games are going to be coming to this newly relaunched service. With some rumors of a few games like Tekken 2, it's hard to say what games you might see, and what games you won't see until later months. So this video is going to be my top 41 games I like to see on the PlayStation Plus Premium. The criteria will follow: games that were on each console. I will sometimes group series. I will also make sure I give a good, decent reason why this game is going to be on the collection. If you have your own suggestions, let me know. So, with that out the way, and though I have made sure this video was long enough, this will be my top 41 games to be on the PlayStation Plus Premium. This will go from the PlayStation 1 to the PSP, and some honorable mentions of possible Vita games. So, let's begin, shall we? The first game in my list, number 41, will be Metal Gear Solid. I think you can kind of guess why this game I picked. This has probably the most iconicness of the PlayStation 1 library. It's well known, it's well remembered for one of the main games that Hideo Kojima has made. It has a lot of memory to a lot of people who played the PlayStation 1, and with many people who do want to play these games again, because the only way to play the original first game is on the PS3. Also, I will count the Legacy Collection later, but I will let you know when that is on my list. I think the biggest reason I can see this because it was a game I would love to play, because I played it once, but I didn't know how to play it when I had it. Now that I know how to play the game, I would love to play that game again. Number 40 will be the Ape Escape 1, both the PlayStation 1 version and the PSP remake. This game has a lot of things that really connects to the beginnings of the DualShock. The idea of having two analog controllers, having two analogs. And this game really utilized the analog sticks at the time. I guess it's the most revolutionary reason, because the idea of using two analog sticks to row a boat. And this was before, the usual games that would use the analog stick as the camera. Also with Ape Escape 2, the European version, on PlayStation 4, I think that it would be good to have this game as well as a companion to have it, One last thing is I do feel the PSP version will also be added, but the reason why I'm putting both games is I feel like they're going to try to have your own choice. You're going to have the PS1 version or PSP version you can pick out. Next is Silent Hill and Silent Hill Shattered Memories, which is my number 38th pick. This game, I remember when I first played it, I remember first dying at the first one of the first monsters. But what I really think this game has a lot of that classic horror and psych, well, just as the monster designs, but also that horror kind of element. Now, I will have an honorable mention for certain 2 games, but I wanted to pick Silent Hill the most because of the whole rumor we had of if we'll ever see a reboot of Silent Hill. Shadow Dimensions is also plays more in that psychological horror, and how it kind of is its own reimagining of the first game, especially with what it reveals on why it's called. No, I meant Shadow Memories, but what that game reveals, and it really interesting to kind of see like something like that at the times. Now, I think the reason why I picked this game, and I think this is on a PS2 or PSP, I think my list says it's PSP. Yeah, I do think Shadow Dimensions will be a pretty interesting game because it's a take of Silent Hill at the time. My number... Oh, I meant 39. Sorry. My 38th pick is the Armored Core series. Now this one was very interesting when I was looking up games. Is that this game was done by From Software. So this is old school From Software games. And I picked this because I think they'd be very cool to see where From Software were before they did stuff like things like Dark Souls and all the games they've done. And I think this is something people should really play, because it gives them a better idea of types of games that came before it. So, I think this game will be pretty good. Not much to say about it, but I think this one will be a good game for those who really want to see the legacy that is From Software before they did things like Dark Souls. Number 37 is the Bloody Roar series. I think we all know fighting games have such a big history on the consoles, especially back in the PlayStation 1 era. And what Tekken 2 confirmed, I think another classic like Bloody Roar should be added to the list. And again, I would like, it's the idea of kind of play something new. And I would love to play something like this, you know? Now we're coming to something else that I'm pretty sure that I can see why they've been trying to contact a lot of companies. My number 30... Oh man, I really did mess up my list a bit. So technically it's 42. So this is 36. I'll explain a bit, because I actually messed up my list a bit. Tales of Destiny and Tales of Eternia, which is Destiny 2. These are one of the few like. This was like one of the first Tales games that did come to the West. So I think Tales of Destiny and Tales of Eternia would be pretty interesting to see come back. Especially now with how people really want to see ports of these games. Plus, like I said, now because I picked these 2 games and why they're both on the same list is because these 2 are the one of few PlayStation games that did come up Tales that came to the West. So that's why I picked this game. And now I think it's time for another classic, Twisted Metal series, which is my number 56 actually. 35, sorry. I guess what happened I have a list, I have my script. Well, not much of a script, but more on my list. So, next Twisted Metal. Now, Demolition Derby games, like the games like this, was very interesting at the time. We got their kind of reliquar kind of sport game, feel like Rocket League. But this is one of the old school kind of games that happened at the time. And I think this game would be pretty good to have, and just the idea of this may come back in the future, which I think are rumors to it. Number 34 is Dino Crisis series. Now, from what I remember, this started as a beta to This started as like a kind of like a prototype Resident Evil game, but now you have dinosaurs. And I think this would be pretty interesting to come back because this is a classic of the Capcom era PlayStation 1, and I think this would be pretty good to see return. And with that new game we just got that has returned the idea of fighting dinosaurs, I think this would be a good game to play. Next is another classic platformer of the PlayStation 1 at Gex. Gex? All I can think of is Gex's Gecko. I know it's a platformer. I think it was probably decent enough to have at least a fan following. I think it would be a good game. The big reason why I picked this is if they get both Gex 1 and Gex 2 and Gecko, I think it would be like it has that notoriety as a classic. Number 32 is Legacy. My next pick is Legacy of Kain. Now, this is a game I have played a little bit of, but I never got far at the time because I was still pretty young, around like high school, middle school when I played it. But this game I feel has at least at most a possibility. I think the biggest reason why I feel this is because this had that kind of style at the time, and I think it'd be a really good game to play. I don't have much memories of it, but I know this was part of a series, and I think this has a shot to come back. My next pick, because I really got to reorder these. So I'm going to stop my own. I'm going to pause this, and I'll come back with the right order. Much better. Fix my list now. So let me recap, because I had to take out one game. So let me recap. My 41 was Metal Gear Solid. My 40 was Ape Escape. My 39 was Silent Hill. My 38 Armored Core. My 37 Tales of Destiny Eternia. 36 was Twisted Metal. 35 Dawn Crisis. 34 Gex. And 33 was Legend of Kain. So now we've come to my 32nd pick is Pac-Man World. Now, I don't have experience with Pac-Man 1 and 3, but I loved playing Pac-Man 2 when I was young. Like, this game was so much fun. Like, I didn't know why I got that game, but I really enjoyed it at the time. And this game I think would be a very good game to really come back, especially with how there hasn't been a I guess I already put it, we haven't seen like the return of a different type of Pac-Man game outside of when we get like a Pac-Man game based on just the maze original Pac-Man game. So we haven't seen a return of a 3D Pac-Man in a long time. This is something I can see come back, especially if 2 and 3 are added from the PS2, PS3 eras. So now to finally wrap up. The PlayStation 1 list is Persona 1 Eternal Punishment. Now, I don't have I don't have any attachments to the original Persona 1 and 2 duology, and they have a big fan following, for better or for worse. And I think these games will be interesting to see people who've never played Persona finally get to play these games legally, without trying to look for an emulator and going all over the place. And the thing about the 3 Persona games is they were somewhere as available very well. Only Persona 1 and Eternal Punishment came to the West. The first Persona 2, Eternal Innocent Sin, didn't come to the West. But I'll get to that soon. This game I feel will be a very, very good game to come to the West. I mean, come to the premium. Especially for those who've never got a chance to play these games. And what we can also know which this will also keep the idea of trying to go back to Persona 1, 2 duology, because I doubt they're going to mess with those games. And those are part of the memories of someone who don't work for Atlus anymore, so it would be weird to touch them. So now we come to the PlayStation 2 list, which is, as I will also add here, will be 30 to 21. So this will go by quickly, so this will be kind of short, but I will explain each one. The first is the first quad of the dot hack games back in the PS2 era. Now, Bandai Namco did do a remaster of the GU series, and adding a fourth brand new story. But so far we haven't heard much of they'll ever do a remaster of the stuff with Kite and Black Rose, stuff like that. And while I kind of more, when it comes to being dot hack, I've gotten so tired of the comparisons to SAO that the only reason I picked up the GU recoded was out of just more interest and curiosity. But don't like the fact people put this game that wasn't even critically acclaimed as most on this high pedestal. But having these 4 games, and I want to see especially how these games would stack up to modern RPGs and modern action RPGs, and see how they perform will be pretty interesting. Number 39 is Ape Escape 3. We have Ape Escape 2, and we have possibly Ape Escape 1 coming. So I think to finish the original trilogy with Ape Escape 3, this one is one I played the most. I actually beat this game. This is the first Ape Escape game I've beaten, and now the second game I beat finally. And I would love to play this game again. I love the idea of playing these two siblings and their different how their morph abilities to play differently, and it was fun to play it. I really love to get all the collectibles, all the different dancer music, and it was pretty cool at the time. And I think this would be something cool. There was a whole rumor if we'll ever see another Ape Escape game or a reboot, but I think this would be a good compromise if we don't get another game. Number 38 is Crazy Taxi. Now, if you know, you gotta remember this game. Crazy Taxi was such a funny game. It was a funny game at the time. And this was really at the time where you have your things like Sips and Run, stuff like that. But Crazy Taxi was just what it was, crazy. The premise of it was, you were a taxi service and you would basically get one person to your next location and just call it happy with Roto First music. It's such a crazy game, and Pimps is Crazy Taxi, that it coming back, it would be something cool to come back if the rumors of Sega coming back to us is true. It'd be cool to see this game come back, but see the original first game would be great too. Number 37 is the Fatal Frame series. Now, these were games I remember a little bit from Don't XYD. Never mind. These games were games I remember seeing back in the day during the original G4 era. Now, the biggest reason I feel like these games would really, really be interesting to see on modern consoles, on modern PlayStation 4 and PS5. It's just that element of kind of, now these games are more of the dealing with kind of like ghosts, like taking a camera and using it to take pictures of ghosts, to quell the spirits. And these games were very interesting at the time. And seeing the original 3 games that did come to the West have another chance would be very interesting. These are games that were done by Koei Tecmo, and I think these games would really be a good way to come back, especially with still that interest and that hype for like horror kind of games, a psychological horror, spiritual horror, to come back. And this game would be more scary. Like, this game would be very interesting, especially with especially with the DualSense. I feel like if some of these games can really use like the DualSense, and it would be very interesting of how a picture can be taken, how you press a button, with how you want to make sure you press it right to take a picture, stuff like that. My number 36 pick is the GTA Story series. Now, we have already available the original PS2 trilogy of GTA games, thanks to the Definitive Edition. I'm not calling it Effective Edition. Like, I'm okay with saying that with people I know, but I'm gonna be respectful. This whole video is supposed to be what games I like to see on the collection. I'm not here to just slander. Feels like a slander right now. So these games are of course very much classics as well, and I think these games will be pretty interesting because, especially with how they look, I think they will run pretty well. And I think they'll do pretty well enough that I think people will like them. While the GTA Definitive Edition didn't do well, I wonder if Rockstar isn't done with trying to bring back some of the classic GTA games to modern consoles. Number 25 is the Guilty Gear series on the PS2. Now, the Guilty Gear series started right back in the PS2. I think I remember it on the PS2 back in the day. And I think these, especially with how many people probably don't remember these games would be very interesting to see come back. Especially with Strive out now, I think seeing this classic game coming back from the early 2000s, these early games, like, they had a style of their own. These games were cool, and I think these games, especially with how everyone have that interest in Guilty Gear, we'll want to see a lot of these characters that haven't come back in Guilty Gear yet. So next is Onimusha series, which are 2 onwards. Now, I think Onimusha, if people really want to get into like classic kind of like Japanese styled games, Onimusha series I think would be cool to see back again, especially with the idea of samurais. We got several games involving samurais. I think this game would fit right back home to one of them really more classic of them all. And I think this game will be very interesting to come back, and especially if they try to get as many of the games as possible. That's why I say 2 onwards. I don't have much to say about it because this is a game I'd really be interested to play again. That's why I picked it. Now we're getting into some games that I have played. 3 games to wrap up the PS2 era. And these are games I actually have played before. Number 23, is Persona 3 Festival. Or FES, by the way. Now, this game was on the PS3. And this game... Now, the one thing about the emulator of the PS3 version was the whole having some kind of I think that because I feel like PS3 was ahead of its time when it came to classic games, but I think there was always a few issues with the emulators of those. But I think now it's running a bit more smoother on better consoles like PS4 and PS5. I think they'll run a lot better. It won't have like the whole ability to control your party, but I think hopefully people who have played these games will be able to compromise playing this. So, especially if they can handle how this game played. Like as much as I don't like the community at best, I do want more people getting into Persona and giving the older games a chance, you know? So speaking of Persona 4, the original vanilla. Now I know Golden should be Golden because that's on the Vita, but I do think that they are going to be adding Vita games. They just gotta find a way how to make them work on PS4 and PS5. We'll see. And this is another game I really think people should play because of just how iconic Persona is, and seeing this is a game that really did bring Persona to the modern attention. No matter how many people want to complain about the spin-offs and Forza attention and all that, I think people should give this a chance. This game will unfortunately get attacked for certain things I'm not going to talk about in this video. So to wrap up my PS2 list is Tony Hawk's Underground. Yeah, now that is the first one and 2. If you want to know a game that was so cool back in the day, like this game was so cool. The idea of you can create your own character, his own story, their own story, like how they go from, you know, kid out in like New Jersey to becoming a well-known like skater and having a very, you know, jerk of a rival. Like, these games were the bomb back in the day. I would love to see more people come back and play them. I think that the interest in Tony Hawk has really started to has been enlightened because of the remaster of 1 and 2, and I think the remake of 1 and 2. I think people will be very interested to play these games again, especially how different they were. So now we have now leave the PS2 era and we come to the PS3 era, and this one I had to look for every game I feel would be that has not came to PS4 that should come to the PS4. So we'll start with number 20 with the Atelier series. Now these games were done by Gus, and these games are pretty much as cozy as you might think, and they were very different. And I think a lot of the older games, especially the ones that did have voice acting back in the day, and I think these games would be very good. Most of them are the PS3 games, haven't made ports to PS4 yet, and I think these would be pretty good. And hopefully that Gus will come back to give these games a dub, because I think that I feel like the games should get a chance, you know? My next pick is the Lightning Trilogy to FF13 Trilogy. For the longest time, ever since we got to the PS4 and the PS4 era, I never once wondered why the Lightning Trilogy never came to PS4 and PS5. Could it be because of, you know, how the games were made? Could they not run on the PS4 and PS5, and that's probably why they're taking so long? And I never got to understand why. But as much as like the Lightning Trilogy is mostly disliked, I do want to see these games get a shot for those who never played them before, and give us a chance instead of the usual, oh, these games are linear, it's a hallway kind of nonsense. Like, I don't know. I think what has made their memes about hallway 13, blah blah blah. But I think that these games have a legacy that should be respected. Number 18, the God of War HD Collection. These are for both God of War 1 and 2. Now, and I guess I also count the PSP collection that they ported to PS2, PS3 as well. The PSP Roulette collection, I mean. Now, like I said, we don't have. This would be good to have the whole God of War series on the PS4. I should kind of check and make sure, because I don't think God of War 1 and 2 are on. I don't think God of War 1 and 2 are on PS4. And while we do have the 4, which is somewhat of a soft reboot in a way, you get what I mean. Let me make sure. I'm actually checking this as I'm recording. That's kind of why a lot of these clips don't really have a rhyme or reason. Yeah, here we go. I guess I'm referring to the God of War Saga collection, actually. Because this contained God of War 1, 2, and 3, as well as the PSP Origin Collection, which was God of War Trains Olympus and Ghost of Sparta. And especially, and I think this game would be very, very interesting if this came back. So that's why I think this be a very important collection to come back, because of just the iconicness of it. As well as one reason is that a lot of people probably don't have only been introduced to God of War by 4. So I think a lot of them should kind of see how it all started. Next is number 17. It's a Hyperdimension Neptunia PS3 collection. PS3 trilogy. Now, the first game it hasn't really aged well in terms of a lot of Idle Factory's games, but this game does have a lot of. The first game does have a lot of, interesting things that hasn't really came back from, that has never fully returned in the later games. With Victory and Mark II and Victory being games that help push Neptunia a little bit further a little bit. Well, the series has not gotten that. Well, the series has not gotten has declined a little bit in fandom. I think that maybe getting a chance to play the original games might help people get back into the series more. You never know. Number 16, the infamous trilogy duology. These are the story ones with Cole in them. Now these games aren't been on the PS4, and the reason I picked these two games is because while we have two other infamous games on the PS4, these are games that I also think have a lot of iconicness to them. Especially with kind of just the fact that Cole was a different character at the time, and I think he was a character at least when it comes to Sucker Punch, a character that I think everyone wants to see come back. Because the people want to see Infamous return, or with either a remake, or a reboot, or something to help bring it back to the modern world, Now, alright, now here's a classic of the PS3 era. Number 15 is the Little Big Planet Trilogy. Now, I guess it'd be 1 and 2, because 1, 2, and 3. And I think these games would be really cool to come back, especially if they can, especially with how, like, they were so fun. They were, like, Sackboy was somewhat a PlayStation mascot, at one of their mascots at the time. So I think seeing these original trilogy games come back, especially those who really like them, would really help. And I think something I think because I only have played a little bit of Little Big Planet, I would still love to play these games, just because they're just so fun. Yeah, here we go. I didn't kind of find out it was just Little Big Planet 1 and 2. But I think, especially if they can somehow get the Little Big Planet karting. So 1 and 2, but I thought 3 was on. But that makes sense. Alright. Number 14 is the Metal Gear. Now, remember when I mentioned Metal Gear Solid 1? I now worry about the rest of the games. This is how I think we're going to get the rest of the games. The Metal Gear Solid Legacy Collection. This one contains the Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, Snake Eater, and I think 4. This collection I think would be very good to return, just for the fact of this gives everyone a chance to play all the Metal Gear Solid games. And this collection did have all of them at the time. That's why I picked this game, because I think this game would have a chance. So, I think the Legacy Collection, I think, has the biggest shot, because I think this game has the biggest shot, especially if they try to get as many of these games as possible. So I feel like the Legacy Collection has the biggest shot, and then I guess you have the HD Collection that was on PS3 as well. But those games were just 2, 3, and I'm looking this up. Make sure I got this right. And Peace Walker. But I feel like they're gonna try to get all 4 games to be available. Number 13. Now these games I really want to see on the collection, on this premium. Naruto, Stupid, Ultimate Ninja Storm, Generations, and Revolution. Now these games were more like side games that was going on while the development of 4 full bursts, and served as kind of as a way to kind of do whatever while they do their own kind of funny things while it was waiting for Storm 4. This one had probably I think this one of these games has probably the most characters, and had like the original story involving the Ninja Tournament, where you can control your own kind of team, your own kind of 4v4 team, and create your own kind of like this crazy team you have with characters. That was Revolution. Generations was kind of going back through some like the iconic moments of Naruto, with some of like the improvements of Storm 3 and 2, I guess. These games have never came to modern consoles, but I think this would be cool to see come back. And speaking of coming back, number 12, the Sly Cooper series. All 4 games, I think. Now, the Sly Cooper series was the bomb back in the PS3 era. That I think that seeing some of the games coming back, especially the first 3, especially the first 4, I guess you would say, like seeing these games, seeing the games come back, I think would have a good shot to give interest to see Sly Cooper return, as we haven't got a confirm if we'll ever will see a return. And to round out the PlayStation 3 era is all the remaining Tales games on PS3. That means including the Tales of Phonia HD Collection, Tales of Graces F, Tales of Xillia 1 and 2, and Zelda 1 and 2. These games have not come to the PS4 and PS3 and PS5, and I think these games would be very great to see for more people these kind of classic games of some of these classic 3Ds. I won't say classic, but these games were fun. I have played all of these games. And I have beaten Graces, Xillia 1 and 2. But I never got to beat Symphonia 1, but I have played Dawn New World. And I would love to come back to these games. And I would love to play these games and share these with people. And tell people that while I'm more of a Tales fan when it came to starting with Graces and Dawn New World, I'm a Tales fan regardless. And with my Tales collection kind of minor, I think that these games would be cool to have back again. Because I do have most of these games, except Symphonia. I don't want to talk about how I lost that. Now we come to the PSP era. And we're going to do what I like to call speed running with this one. I'm gonna give you my list, and I'm gonna tell you why these games I think would be pretty good to come to the premium. Number 10, Daxter Ratchet Clank Size Matters. These were small kind of games. They were different types of games that were small, best spec on the PSP era. The games have not been on PlayStation 3 and 4 and 5. We could have on modern consoles and have people get to see these different games at a time. Persona 2 Innocent. This is the localized version of that game, and this will give people access to this game that they never got a chance before, and this is probably the best version to play of this game. Secret Agent Clank number 7. This is another kind of like crazy kind of game, and another kind of side game that they did. Now, the reason I will mention like my honorable mention of games, but I will get that soon. But I'm gonna try to wrap this all up so I can do these honorable mentions of games I can see them try to get to. Number 6, Persona 3 Portable. Another kind of way to play Persona 3 would have a female protagonist, and I think that if people do want to get a chance to play Persona 3, I recommend this because even though you don't have like the cutscenes, it's cool to see at least this game at best. Number 5, Sonic Rivals, both 1 and 2. I think with the possibility there probably might be removing Sonic games, but probably bringing some of them back, it's possible that some of them are going to be games that were on the PS3 and they're going to try to bring those games back. Number 4, Final Fantasy IV, the Complete Edition. This one is before and after years. Number 3 is Final Fantasy 1 and 3, which is the PSP versions. Number 2 is Loco Roco, another classic PSP game. And number 1 is Patapon, another classic on the PSP. So that is my list. So I have some other mentions I didn't put on this list. And these are games I know are going to be on the list, but I think so. One game I do feel is going to be on this is going to be all the remaining future series that weren't on PlayStation Now, because one of the games you had to have the Pacific controller back in the day. Another classic game I can kind of see in the PS3 is any type of platform at the time, or any collection that hasn't came to PS4. as well as if they can try to get some licensed games. I feel there's some licensed games I can see them pull from. So I hope you enjoyed my list. Sorry it was not as well done as I kind of wanted it to be, but you know. So I want to like to hear what games you like to see on the premium. What game you think that might come first, and what games might come later, and what games where you're going to be excited to play once we have a list. So from me, OPQX99, I'll see you next time. Bye.